Another hot topic facing Oklahoma voters next week is whether to allow public money to be spent for religious purposes.
State Question 790 would repeal Section 5 of Article 2 of the Oklahoma Constitution, which bans the practice. The proposal was inspired by the recent debate over a Ten Commandments monument that was located on the state capitol grounds.
Remember this? It's now slightly down the street around 14th and Lincoln. The plan was to bring this back to Capitol grounds, not, on the other hand, to open the door for a satanic statue, for example. But now a different out-of-state group is pushing for this religious symbol to stand next to and even high above the two tablets. Show folks in Oklahoma City, and it's unfamiliar.
I think it's disgusting. I don't know what it's supposed to represent.
You don't like that?
No, it's a monkey.
Actually, it's a Hindu symbol.
Yes, he is very prominent.
His name is Hanuman. He stands in plazas around the world.
He represents strength, and he is also known for wisdom.
Hindus who worship here in Oklahoma City like the proposal from the Nevada-based Universal Society of Hinduism.
But I'm not sure that the capital is the place where it should be. Awareness about other religion is always a good thing. But putting a statue, and especially in front of the capital, I'm not sure how that will serve the purpose.
At the Capitol, lawmakers see another purpose.
I think this is a last-ditch effort to try to dissuade people from voting yes on 790.
That's the state question on your ballot that would help bring the controversial Ten Commandments monument back.
This is about protecting religious liberty.
Still, Representative John Paul Jordan won't be supporting a Hindu monument because the Supreme Court tells him he doesn't have to.
And they said, look, just because you accept one monument doesn't mean you have to accept all monuments. They likened it to New York City being told because you accept a Statue of Liberty, you got to accept a statue of autocracy.
Still, it's no big deal for some.
That at the Capitol has nothing to do with my life.
While others
Nothing personal. It looks, I don't know what it represents. It looks terrible to me.
only see an eyesore. There are roughly 500 to 1,000 Hindu families living in the Oklahoma City area, and again, they're not necessarily sold on this. The local India Association says a statue could go someplace else, and there are other smaller symbols that could be displayed at the Capitol instead.
Cleveland, y'all all right? I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. This is history.
Ain't nobody fresher than the motherfucker.
Tonight, just when you thought the election couldn't get any crazier, WikiLeaks drops the biggest bombshell yet. Spirit cooking. The Clinton campaign chairman involved in a bizarre occultic ritual.
Well, without a doubt, we woke up to the most bizarre WikiLeaks revelation to date. The Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta, was invited to a spirit cooking dinner. Now, spirit cooking dinner, this is a cult black magic practice founded by Aleister Crowley, famous Satanist Aleister Crowley. And this woman, she's an artist, she's a performance artist, does these really bizarre rituals where the recipe calls for menstrual blood, semen, and breast milk.
Basically, I'm a
this is what's on the menu.
Creature that wants to serve Satan, and he's talking to her like they're dear loves, and he's been in these before, and she has a menu of the different bloods, and
there's videos of this woman
totally bizarro
sitting here, pulling her shirt up, getting a razor blade and carving a pentagram into her stomach with the blood dripping on TED Talk, calling this art. That's not art.
You don't get it. It's art.
Well, the issue here is we've always known this is going on. This is what our intel keeps bringing us about who these people are.
It's very bizarre. And then we have this flashback. Adon Salazar put the flashback. Now, you remember Guccifer was one of the first people who exposed that Hillary Clinton was working with his private server. He was able to hack in. And, of course,
she's a goddess of the occult.
Extradited to the U.S. And a handwritten letter he sends out basically saying that he failed in his job as Guccifer. And the one thing he really wanted to do was to fully expose the Illuminati, the council, and their crimes. And he says Hillary Rodham Diane Clinton is one of the high priests, a goddess of this occult, satanic shadow group.
As WikiLeaks releases another batch of emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign, RT presents the next part of an exclusive interview given by the Whistleblower's website's co-founder Julian Assange to renowned documentary maker John Pilger and Dartmouth Films. They discuss one of the most shocking leaked letters, which allegedly proves that Hillary Clinton knew the Saudi government has been directly funding Islamic State.
What is WikiLeaks doing? Are they trying to put Trump in the White House?
Trump would not be permitted to win. Banks, intelligence, arms companies,
well, they all want him
beat, foreign money, etc.
Yeah,
is all united behind Hillary Clinton, and the media as well. Media owners and even journalists themselves.
Donald Trump's lack of support from any corner of any establishment is pretty much the opposite of the situation that Hillary Clinton is in. But can too much support be a bad thing, especially when it lumps you in a club with some pretty dubious members?
There's an early 2014 email from Hillary Clinton, so not so long after she left Secretary of State, to her campaign manager, John Podesta. That email, it states that ISIS is funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Now, I think this is the most significant email in the whole collection.
ISIL or ISIS is created largely with money from the very people who are giving money to the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
That's extraordinary.
CBS News has learned about a potential terror threat ahead of the election. Sources say that U.S. intelligence has alerted joint terrorism task forces that al-Qaeda could be planning attacks in 3 states for Monday. That, as you know, is the day before the election. It is believed that New York, Texas, and Virginia are all possible targets. The credibility of the intelligence has not been confirmed. Jeff Pegues is in Washington with new details. Jeff, it's very disconcerting to hear this on this Friday. Good morning to you.
Good morning. U.S. authorities are taking this threat seriously while still assessing the credibility of the intelligence, but counterterrorism officials across the country have been alerted out of an abundance of caution. Law enforcement sources tell CBS News the threat comes from al-Qaeda, and intelligence points to attacks taking place in New York, Texas, and Virginia, but the threat information provided no specific targets for possible attacks in those states. As Election Day approaches, federal law enforcement is planning for several worst-case scenarios. Earlier this week, an alert to local police warned of polling places being seen as attractive targets for lone wolf-type attacks by individuals motivated by violent extremist or sovereign citizen activity. A senior FBI official says the Bureau is working closely with the Department of Homeland Security and other federal, state, and local agencies to disrupt and identify potential threats. It is not unusual for there to be an increase in the volume of threats leading up to significant events like holidays or even an election. An official says it is important to investigate those threats thoroughly.
The election is big news all over the world, especially in Russia. In Moscow, Elizabeth Palmer found who Russia's president is supporting.
No one in today's Kremlin-sponsored rally celebrating Russian unity can vote in the U.S. election, of course. But if they could, they've picked their candidate.
Я за Трампа. Ну пусть будет Трамп.
For the past few months, Russians have been fed the Kremlin's message through mass media, and that is Hillary Clinton is bad, Donald Trump is better, the U.S. elections are in a shambles, and American democracy itself is broken.
On State TV's most watched news program, the anchor called the election America's biggest scandal and featured Rudolph Giuliani with tales of vote rigging.
State television is direct extension of the Kremlin.
Mikhail Fishman is the editor-in-chief of the Moscow Times.
What does the Kremlin want to put in Russians' heads?
There is no real democracy in the world. It doesn't work.
Because democracy threatens President Vladimir Putin. Just look at the anti-Putin demonstrations demanding democracy in 2011 after vote-rigging allegations in Russia's parliamentary elections. And when then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said she had serious concerns, the Kremlin saw it as unforgivable U.S. meddling. It also blamed America for backing democratic uprisings in Russia's backyard in nearby Ukraine and Georgia. So for Putin to hear a U.S. candidate imply America's democracy is a sham is sweet revenge.
We have been accused of being an authoritarian state. But as soon as there is no democracy anywhere, no one is to blame.
China. China's rise is the story of the 21st century.
Donald Trump has talked about China a lot on the campaign trail, Hillary Clinton less so. But it's usually about trade, not the South China Sea. So where do the candidates stand on the competing territorial disputes? Bonnie Glaser is one of Washington's most influential thinkers on the South China Sea. She thinks if Hillary Clinton is elected, the world could see more so-called freedom of navigation operations by U.S. warships near waters claimed by China.
Potentially, Hillary Clinton might be willing to incur more friction in the relationship between the U.S. and China on the South China Sea and other issues.
A U.S. judge has banned supporters of Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump from exit polling. Trump's campaign was planning to carry out a nationwide exit poll aimed at preventing voter fraud, but Democrats said that such exit polls could encourage Trump supporters to harass minority voters. They launched a legal blitz in 6 states to prevent that from happening. Trump has said that the election will be rigged. He has even called on his supporters to keep an eye on voting activity for possible signs of fraud in large cities.
40 minutes after the hour, and a drastic rise in firearm background checks just ahead of the election as some voters fear a win for Hillary could restrict their Second Amendment rights. Cheryl Casoni from our sister network Fox News is here now with a record-breaking number, Cheryl, and an issue that's on a lot of people's minds going into Tuesday.
It really is. Good morning. And with just 4 days to go before the election, gun rights are back in the spotlight. New government data shows that the number of Americans looking for gun permits is on the rise for the 18th straight month. Back in October, 2.3 million background checks were processed, a new monthly record. And it's not just because hunting season is in full swing. The outcome of Tuesday's election will set the tone for gun ownership in this country. The candidates have very different visions.
We have a moral obligation to reduce gun violence. I am willing, with your help and the help of responsible gun owners, to stand up to the gun lobby.
Hillary wants to take your guns away. She wants to leave you unprotected in your home.
Well, if Hillary Clinton is elected and the Senate goes to Democratic control, the likelihood of stricter gun laws is apparent in the sales numbers. According to analysts, the next Congress will be under pressure to act, in particular because of the rise in mass shootings and violence against police officers. Gun control groups also have a close eye on the Supreme Court vacancy. Justice Antonin Scalia wrote the decision that upheld the Second Amendment right to bear arms in the nation's capital. So there's a lot at stake here on Tuesday. Guys, back to you.
With election season underway, many have forgotten about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Many believe that the Global Trade Initiative was killed off already by Congress. Earlier in the year, it was mentioned a lot more during the primaries by Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, who both were against what they believed to be a disastrous plan. Recently, the Obama administration wanted to remind the American people that they were still pushing for the treaty. The White House has begun to pressure Congress to approve the trade deal.
Better
Federal health officials reported Friday a newly identified fungus that can kill very sick patients has been found in U.S. hospitals. Even worse, the fungus has probably been here for a few years already, infecting at least 13 people, including 4 who died. The yeast is called Candida auris and was first identified in 2009 in a Japanese patient with an ear infection. Since then, it's been found in a handful of countries around the world. In June, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention asked doctors to look for it. According to NBC News, the CDC reports they found 13 cases over the summer. Some strains of the fungus resist all classes of antifungal drugs used to fight it. In some cases, the infections appeared related. Some of the patients had been in the same hospital together or one right after another, and genetic sequencing showed the Candida strains were close. The CDC said the strain found in the 4 patients who died was related to a strain seen in South Asia.
Tens of thousands of people in Indonesia have marched against the governor of Jakarta, accusing him of insulting the Quran. Angry protesters organized a rally in the heart of the capital to demand his resignation. The Christian governor, known as Ahok, has faced a backlash after he dismissed a Quranic verse, which his opponents used to suggest a non-Muslim should not be governor of the city.
A news agency affiliated with ISO has released a video showing it blowing up a Russian helicopter in a rural area of eastern Homs province. The Russian military confirmed one of its helicopters came under rebel fire while delivering humanitarian aid and was forced to make an emergency landing before being destroyed. However, it said its crew were unhurt and were rescued immediately after the incident.